Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today, as you can see from the title of the video, I'm going to be talking about all my placements. Now that I've finished all my placements, I'm going to share with you guys everything about the application process, supervision, the costs, the hours, because I get asked about that quite a lot in DMs and via emails. So I thought I'd make a video explaining everything that I went through with all my placements, and yeah, let's get straight into it. So before I begin talking about my placement, I just want to explain how the placement process with my masters worked. So one thing that you need to know, with my masters, it was a 3-year masters. So in the first year we didn't do placement. I know some other courses might do placement in the first year, but our university didn't. And this is not to say that they would always do this, they might change this, but at the moment that was the case. We didn't do placement in first year, so we did 100 hours of placement in second year and 100 hours of placement in the third year. And the only thing that they asked was that you had more face-to-face hours than online hours. So if you had, for example, 99 online hours, you needed to have 101 face-to-face hours. Whatever it was, you couldn't have 50-50. Your face-to-face hours had to be more than your online hours, even if it was just 1 extra hour. And something else I get asked a lot is how I found my placement. So I think I've mentioned this in a few videos about placements, which I will link in the description box below, is that my university provided a database with about 200 placements, and from those placements I just basically went through the ones that I felt like I wanted and that I liked and that I fit the criteria for, emailed them and got in touch with them, or went to their website and applied depending on the instructions provided. So that's just basically how it was for me and the university that I went to. So my first placement was in second year of university. So at the end of first year we were told, to start thinking about placement, start looking for placement during the summer holiday once we finished first year. So most of us started looking around June, July, and I was quite lucky that one of the first placements I applied to took me on, which was ARC Putney Academy. They are a school that's actually quite close to the university, and to be honest, it was quite a simple process. They didn't really interview me. I emailed them and told them I was a student from Northampton and I wanted to do placement with them, and they were like, yeah, that's fine, what do you need from us, how many hours do you want to do, things like that. And they were like, do you want to come and see the school before we close for summer holiday? And I was like, yeah, that's fine. So I went to the school, met the team, and then we're like, okay, you can start in September. Unfortunately, for a few reasons, I wasn't able to start in September, so I started in November. But in terms of the interview and application process, I didn't have to really have a formal interview. They just asked me to bring in the paperwork that I needed them to sign, which if your university has paperwork for your placement to sign, make sure you do that as soon as possible, and you know the deadlines for all of those things. So with that one, it was quite simple, it was quite easy. So I had that placement secured before the end of first year or before the start of second year. So that was really, really lucky, because I know it wasn't that simple for some other placements and for some of my colleagues on the course as well. So this placement, like I said, I eventually started in November of 2022 and I stayed there until May of 2023. And in the time that I was there, this was a face-to-face placement, by the way. In the time I was there, I was only able to see 16 to 18-year-olds because this is an adult, technically an adult counselling masters. So that means you're allowed to see clients age 16 and above. So I couldn't see students that were in the secondary school, only students in the sixth form and above. So those are the students that I had in the time I was there. In the time I was there, I had 11 clients altogether, and at any one point I had 4 to 5 maximum. And it was basically just going with the school day, the schedule of the school timing. It was quite straightforward. So lesson 1, lesson 2, I'd have clients in those times, and when they had break time, I had break time. When they had lunchtime, I had lunchtime. When they had half-term holiday, I had half-term holiday. So in that regard, the school structure is slightly different to like a regular counselling service, because of course you have to go by the lesson times and the lesson schedules, and if they have holiday, you have holiday. So that's also a pro and a con for different reasons. But I think I did a video about what it was like being a counsellor in a school. That will also be linked in the description box for you to watch. So in terms of supervision with this placement, I was so lucky that the school paid for supervision, and supervision was 1-to-1. It was lovely, and I even did a video about this supervision, which will also be linked in the description box for you to watch. This supervision was 1-to-1, and it was my first time having like external supervision from a placement, and it was amazing. It was a lovely experience, and I even told my supervisor, like, you set the standard and the bar so high that any other supervisor I have after you will have a lot to live up to. And I'll get into that later. But the school paid for that supervision, so that one was free, which I was really, really grateful for, because when you're doing placement, you also have to pay for insurance, you pay for travel, and sometimes you even pay for your supervisors to sign your forms. Luckily, that's not something I experienced, but some of the colleagues on my course told me that at the end of the year, when you have to sign paperwork to submit to the university, some of the supervisors ask you to pay for every single document that they have to sign. So that's just something to keep an eye out for, and something you can even ask your placement ahead of time if you'd like to know. So the supervision was great. It was once every 2 weeks for 1 hour, which I feel like wasn't enough time. I literally had so much to talk about because I had 5 clients or 4 clients at any given moment. So 1 hour wasn't always enough to talk about all my clients, but it was lovely and really, really helpful. So with the school placement, I was only in 1 day a week. I think I was in on a Wednesday morning. No, I was in on a Wednesday, so it was the whole school day. So that's how it was. It was only 1 day extra commitment. So that was my first placement. My second placement was called Frontline Therapist. They are now closed, but they were also really good. They were exclusively online therapy on a budget, which was really great. So I did this placement from April 2023 to March 2024. So I was there for almost 1 year. I would have stayed with them until April because it was meant to be a 1 year contract, but they closed in the March of 2024. So with that placement, I had an online interview. I can't remember exactly how long it lasted, but I don't think it was more than an hour. It was quite typical questions that they would ask, like, you know, scenarios about what you do if a client said this or said that, asking about core conditions, asking a little bit about theory. I can't remember it honestly, but it wasn't anything harder than I expected. There was no questions that threw me off. It was kind of stuff I expected. Talking about ethics, so know your ethics, which I have a video on as well, and just be prepared for that kind of stuff. But the interview was pretty simple, straightforward, and I think it was even at the end of the interview actually that she said that I've been accepted, or it was either that or she emailed me shortly after to say I was accepted. It was great. There was a lot of induction, like a lot of videos and things to read, but that's to be expected. That wasn't the case with the school, by the way. But with this placement, yeah, there was a lot of documents and policies and things to read, and just to make sure that I knew how to use all the services online and get the folders and access documents and stuff and client information on the shared Google Drive. So just be wary and be prepared for that as well, depending on how the placement operates, whether they're online or face-to-face. But I'd say my experience with this placement was really good. So with this placement, the supervision was a group supervision, and unfortunately I had to pay for it. It was £60 a month or £61 a month, something like that. And yeah, so in the group we had a maximum of 4 people, but occasionally we'd have maybe 2 or 3 people because there wasn't extra people that needed supervision. So it was maximum of 4, but sometimes we were 3, sometimes we were 4, depending on people that were starting and finishing with the placement at different times. But I kept the same supervisor the whole time. So group supervision was not my favourite because I feel like you just don't have obviously as much time to talk about all the clients that you might want to. But it's also great. I think the great thing about group supervision was hearing other people's input and not just having your supervisor to hear from, and just being able to exchange ideas and theories and knowledge with other therapists and how they work, which was really helpful. So with this placement, I had 5 clients in total, but at any given time you had to have 4 clients. So when one of my clients left, they gave me another one and I had 4 again. So altogether in the time I was there, in the 11 months I was there, I had 4 clients. 3 of them were consistent the whole time. One of them started when the other one left. So with that placement, you had to have 4 clients at any given moment. And if one left, then you got a replacement as soon as possible. With this placement, the hours that I did was a bit more spread out. So I had 2 clients on a Monday evening and 2 clients on a Wednesday evening. And I think it was either on the one of the 2 days I had like a 1 hour break between the 2 of them. So I think one was at 5 p.m. and one was at 7 p.m. But then on the other day it was like 6:30 and 7:30, so back to back. And this was the case I think for quite a few people because it was just based on your availability and the client's availability. So with this placement, they would try to match your availability with the client's availability, and that's how you got allocated. So with this placement, instead of just doing 1 day of like certain time, it was split across 2 different days, which is not something I liked because I would have rather just had all my clients in one go in 1 day and not have to think about it again. But with this placement, I still enjoyed it. It was online, so it wasn't like too much of an inconvenience to have 2 different days because I just logged in, logged out, and it was quite straightforward in that way. So I really did enjoy that placement, and I enjoyed my clients a lot in that placement. Like, that was long-term therapy, same as the school that was also open-ended long-term therapy. Supervision was every 2 weeks for, I think it was about 2 hours if I remember correctly. So you all had either 30 minutes or 45 minutes depending on how many people were in the group. You had a certain amount of time allocated to speak about how many other clients you wanted to speak about. If you only wanted to share about one person, if you wanted to share about 3 people, you could. So that was that. With this placement, you couldn't say the names of your clients. So some supervisors are okay with you saying the names of your clients. Some prefer you to make up a name. Some of them prefer you to just use initials. So in this placement, we didn't say the names of clients. You could either make up a name or use initials. So I preferred to use initials of my clients. So that was how this placement was. So my last placement was at an NHS surgery called Putney Mead. So this is in Putney, which is also close to the university. So this placement was face-to-face. I even did a vlog about it, which I will also link in the description box and at the end of this video for you to watch. So this placement I did from February 2024 to August 2024. Ideally, the contract is for 1 year, but I was only able to commit for that space of time because of the limitation of finishing my course in July. So if you're going to go with them, make sure you obviously have the 1 year that you can commit to them. So this one, the interview was also online. I remember I had 2 people interview me. With the previous one I spoke about, it was only 1 person that interviewed me, but this one, 2 people interviewed me, and once again, it wasn't too much pressure, it wasn't too difficult. The questions were what I kind of would have expected. They want you to be honest. They asked me about like how I feel about working with high-risk clients, how I feel about doing CBT. That's what I remember mainly. But I think somebody else said that someone else who did the placement there had really difficult questions. But she was a PhD student, so that might have been why. So don't expect that your questions will be easy just because mine were kind of easy, and obviously easy is relative. But the interview was okay. It was also less than an hour. It wasn't that long. And then afterwards had an induction showing me all the documents I needed to know about. There was a lot more paperwork involved here because you had to do the PHQ guide assessment with each client, and you had to fill in a lot of forms at the start and ending of every session with every client. And this one was short-term therapy, so I had a lot of clients coming and going, 6 to 12 sessions, but most clients had about 6 sessions, a few had 9, I think only one had 12. But to be honest, because of that, it was like a lot of paperwork because you're having clients coming and going constantly. In the time I was there, I had a total of 10 clients because of the fact that it was short-term therapy. So this was my first experience of short-term therapy. It was interesting, and yeah, I learned a lot from it. But you can watch my vlog to see a bit more about what it was like. So in terms of the hours I did at that placement, it was always on a Wednesday morning to early afternoon. So my timing was 10:30 to 1:20, and it was back to back, which I didn't really enjoy. But at the same time, it's like you do your 4 hours and then you go home. I would sometimes stay and do the paperwork before I got home, but it was still a very helpful and interesting placement to be at. So with this one, supervision was also group supervision, and this one was 3 hours, 9 to 12 a.m. on a Monday morning. Lovely. And I think it was about similar. We had about 3 or 4 people depending on people that were available and wanting to be in the group. Supervision here was also free, which was really great. I was really grateful for that. But once again, remember, you're still paying for your insurance, your memberships and stuff like that. And I had to also pay for another certification, which I will put on the screen. I can't remember what it's called, but I had to pay for that. It was a one-off payment of I think £30, but I'll put it on the screen once I double check. And that was the only other thing I remember having to pay for with this placement. But it was good and I enjoyed it, having my own room and things like that. The only issue I think I had there was just people kind of disturbing and knocking on the door sometimes. But I ended up putting a sign on the door to say like, this is session in progress, and there was no more disturbances. But there was also a fire alarm test like every week that I was there. So like 11 a.m. on the dot in the middle of one of my sessions, it would start ringing. But anyway, with this placement you can work in person or online, but I opted for in person because I needed the in-person hours more. So that was that placement.